received some good suggestions. So we've thought about potentially playing stuff like Recombobulus to make Lost in the Desert better, because like I've cast it maybe once or twice today, or I could just cut it. The Third Wishes I'm still liking. They're a bit situational, but they're pretty powerful. I usually just use them to kill stuff, but the burst is very much appreciated as well. I like the Obelisk early game. I think it's working well. They don't get dispelled very often. It's not too hard to, you know, even if they die in a couple of turns, like you can still get a trade off and force your opponent to warp their strategy around dealing with the obelisks. The Dunecasters have been a bit awkward. I do like them. They are very powerful. But because a lot of the time obelisks don't get to do anything, like your opponent will run away or will kill them. The Dunecasters can be a bit awkward, but I think they're still strong enough despite that. Whisper is a really good card. I think 2 is still the right number. Skippy, I like. A lot of this list is 2 obs of really strong cards that like aren't quite reliably on enough, but the overall power level is very high as a result. I heard that Pado is quite good with Lost in the Desert. That sounds hilarious. You like flash Pado by playing Alcuin Lawmaster to get a flash, and then flash Pado Hope. Pado Decimate. Like, you can play Envy Bear, I guess. Is that still legal? I mean, that sounds kind of funny, right? It's a terrible idea. I shouldn't do that. Just play this guy instead. So one thing I could do is cut Skippies and Dunecasters for this, and trim, like get a Sandsword Reader in there, trim a Gust or a Healer. I don't know. I really like Gust. It's a lot of burst and a lot of flexibility. You can kind of chuck it down in the middle of a crowded board and go to town. It's very similar to Mechantor Warbeast, basically. And obviously, anything that's even reminiscent of Mechantor is bonkers. I feel like Repulsor Beast. I don't know, man. It's better with Lost in the Desert, obviously. It's more reliable than Recombobulus. Yeah, that's fair enough. I like that Recombobulus can A, be a decent on-curve play. Like, when you play Repulsor Beast without getting huge value out of it, it feels rubbish. B, teleport your own stuff. Can try and get cheeky lethals. See, it has infinite range, so you can like just see if you can pull your opponent's creature into range on the first turn or second turn even, and do janky things. But yeah, Repulsor Beast has more synergy, but I'm not really going in that direction. This is more of an aggro deck, or was intended to be. These cards are basically curve toppers, but because Vitruvian good stuff cards are so good, the list can afford to play a lot of curve toppers. So it looks like a mid-range deck, but the whole plan is to go face. Hence the Third Wishes. They're just a massive tempo card. And substantial burst. But there's enough like removal and card advantage in here that you can go toe-to-toe with control decks a bit more. Like if your aggro start doesn't work out quite well, if they have a Plasma Storm, whatever. But fundamentally, this is an aggro deck. My aggro list is looking like this. So this is a more aggressive build than what I'm currently doing. Blood Tears, Flame Bloods, Primus Fist, Blazehound, Falcius, Saberspine, Spelljammer, Gust, Sandsword Reader. First Wish, Bone Swarm, Rash's Curse, Second Wish, Lost in the Desert, Blood of Air, Iris Barrier. Yeah, I can see that. So the reason I played it like this is that I love having these big bombs because it means you can shift your game plan. Like, against an opponent with a lot of defense, or when you have a bad opening, being able to top deck an Imara healer is pretty strong. Or just, when you're behind. Like, there's a lot of cards in that deck that just deal a little bit of damage to the opponent, which is kind of hard to chain together sufficiently, I think. It does look like a good deck, don't get me wrong. It's probably more powerful than it looks offhand. When you address tempo, what exactly do you mean? So tempo is a hard concept to explain concisely, but basically I think of it as like momentum. So generally the player who has a tempo advantage is getting to do more stuff than their opponent. They might have a lead on board, so they're getting to make better trades. They might be the one playing minions and then forcing the opponent to back off or body block or use removal to not die. So like if the board is empty and you're both near each other and you get to play a minion first, that gives you a big advantage, right? Because now you have a minion your opponent doesn't. If they play something, you might be able to trade into it. If they don't want to take face damage, they'll have to run away from your minion, otherwise it attacks them. So you can say that in this situation, you have a tempo advantage. It's like, as I said, it's like having momentum. So Vitruvian decks have a lot of cards that give you a lot of tempo, very high tempo. So Obelisks, for instance, because if the Obelisk itself doesn't die, the Dervishes can attack for free and have a decent amount of maneuverability around the Obelisk. It's very difficult for your opponent to play to the board. Like, they have to make an effort to overwhelm your Dervishes because you're just attacking their stuff for free every turn. So you get card advantage out of it because you're getting free trades off the Dervishes. But it's also, you're spending no mana and dealing damage to their minions every turn. So that's also a tempo lead. Whisper of the Sands can kill a bunch of stuff for 2 mana in the right circumstances. Things like Silence First Wish is a very efficient way of potentially trading up or killing something and leaving you with a big minion that can trade again. Falcius plays a minion to the board and removes an opponent's minion or deals a bunch of face damage. Same with, Thunderhorn can kill a bunch of stuff at once. So you have all these cards that can play to the board and then either repeatedly remove enemy minions or play to the board and remove something in the same turn. And so you get to snowball your board advantage every turn. And eventually that translates into also being able to hit your opponent in the face. So, which means you can keep snowballing your advantage by pressuring them, forcing them to back off, forcing them to defend themselves against dying. They start getting down to like the 15 or 10-ish range and they think, oh, what if I die next turn or in 2 turns? I have to play defensively. And that makes it harder, again, for them to push back against your tempo advantage. So it all comes down to this kind of momentum and one thing snowballing into another. If that makes sense. But yeah, actually, I think thinking of this as a tempo deck is maybe a better description than it being straight up aggro. But like most Vitruvian decks, it can deal a bunch of face damage very quickly. So initially when I built it, I was thinking aggro with a bit of a top end. But I guess that just is a tempo deck. Going back to the deck building discussion, I might just leave this as it is and try a different version with the teleporting effects. Like a more traditional... So I built that list a while ago, before Lost in the Desert, Repulsor, Thunderhorn shenanigans became a thing. It's very similar to that, but that's either coincidental or clever, depending on how well you want to think of me in the process. It was essentially... So let's try it. So we're going to lose a lot of early game here, right? What's the rest of it? You obviously play 3 Thunderhorns with this in. Repulsor gives you at least some removal. Maybe 2 of those. Lost in the Desert. Times 3 now. Thanks for the explanation. Just recently got more competitive, so just trying to learn. Oh, awesome. And thank you for the recommendation of my stuff there, Black Bolts. Yeah, I have a video series called Strategy Shorts that was originally intended to be weekly, and then Christmas happened. But there's now about 11 videos in there. Each one's something like 10 to 20 minutes long, where I discuss some concept in depth. That might be useful to you if you're looking to improve. In fact, there's one that's specifically about getting better as a new player that I made after commentating one of the Rookie Brawl tournaments. You might want to check that out. And in general, if you have questions, just shoot me a message. I'm always on Discord. I get notifications from Discord. So So I'll chat to you whenever I have time. Right. I'm trying to net deck without actually looking at a list, which is hard. Valkyus. What if? Skippy. How do I 2-drops? Do you just like... Do you play golems? Golems or obelisks? Or the super aggro? My tip for getting better and playing properly, figure out what all your actions will be before you make a single action. That is a very good tip, and that's in fact one of the things I tried to talk about in that video, but actually probably didn't cover in the way you just put it so cleanly. There is one proviso though, which is the reason I rope all the time and I'm constantly having to make panic misplays is that I try and do that, and this game is really complicated. So I myself need to find like a heuristic for catching myself up quickly to, like, you know, replace in the first 10 seconds as opposed to after the first minute, because I've been thinking about what to do. It's under my YouTube. I will give you a link to my YouTube because it doesn't have a channel name on it, because YouTube is weird. That's a bad explanation. YouTube, so you know how Google bought YouTube like ages ago? Why isn't there a my channel link in the sidebar? Give me a sec. Yeah, YouTube, I have a Google account. I made that long before I started putting stuff on YouTube. There it is. So I don't have like an account with my name on it. Portable laser, aka kinematic projection. Yeah, I don't know. I had a brief go at Improbable Blob's kinematic projection deck. It was a lot of fun, but like the card kinematic projection didn't really do much for me in the game or two that I played. So let's stick with obelisks since I enjoy them more than golems. Get these bad boys in here. And then if we're also playing, we can play Whisper, and we can play Gust. We can play Blood of Air. And we can play Sandswell Reader. And we can say, bye, Curve. I never loved you anyway. Probably want some Star's Fury in here to go with the positional stuff. I've forgotten what my last slot was going to be. The problem with this, I feel like if your Thunderhorn dies, you don't... No, because you got lost in the desert as well, I mean. How do you get up to that amount of mana? Do I just have to play a healing? Let's get an extra one of those in so I can kill stuff with it. Oh, this feels really low on removal though. Let's get a cheeky Rash's Curse in there. There's way too many dervishes in here not to be playing Dunecaster though. Oh, Rash's Dunecaster is sweet. Wait, Spelljammers. Much more important. Could put a timer on them with Hex. Hex? Hexblade. Or do you mean something else? You don't. No, Hexblade doesn't excite me that much. I mean, I've played some Artifact Vitruvian, it's okay, but I think that's a very different deck. How's this looking now? Still need to fit in Dunecasters. Do I do the unthinkable and cut a First Wish? Yeah. And one of these, I guess? No Hex, apparently. Spine Cleaver. Oh, Spine Cleaver's sweet. Again, not really for this deck, but I do like that card. The problem with including stuff like Spine Cleaver, it's not that the card is bad, far from it, and it's a hilarious hit off Skippy. It's that it takes up slots, and Vitruvian decks always have so much going on. Like, look at all the different random synergies and lines of play in this deck. Rash's Curse, Dunecaster, Lava Storm Obelisk to block off space, Recombobulus to go with obelisks to move them around, you know, set up for Whispers of the Sands, Falkius to kill their stuff, maybe after pulling it into range, Repulsor Beast Lost in the Desert, Repulsor Beast Thunderhorn, Spelljammer because we need card draw, Removal because we need removal, Burst because we need burst, this guy because it's amazing. You know, like, there's so many... These cards all compete for space as it is. So something like a Spine Cleaver, it doesn't directly contribute to any of these synergies or your core game plan, it's just good. And it helps you kill them, but it's pretty slow, so it's kind of a different... Like, maybe if you're playing a control deck and you're going to sit there and kill their minions and then heal yourself so you don't die while you're putting yourself in danger to get Spine Cleaver kills. I also like Spine Cleaver, don't get me wrong. It is a sweet card, and you are not wrong to love it. But it doesn't fit this deck, I think. That said, I should probably play it in Siphoron Control if I go back to that ever. Which I would like to do because the deck is fun. So, this is like basically the net deck version. Right, so we'll do... I don't know, what am I going to call this? Do that.